In approximately 2 minutes. Okay, good evening, everyone. On behalf of the partners, consultants, and staff of Understanding Ag and the directors of Soil Health Academy, I want to welcome you to tonight's webinar. The webinar is entitled Marketing: How to Launch a Perishable Shipping Business from Scratch. A few housekeeping items this evening, so please keep your phones or your iPads muted during the presentation. We will be taking questions and answers afterwards. So type those questions and answers into the Q&A box if you're able to. It's a real pleasure for us at Understanding Ag to welcome Blaine and Brooks Hitzfield to the program this evening. The Hitzfields are part of the Seven Sons Farm operation near Roanoke, Indiana. They have, along with their parents and siblings, created a very enviable direct farm-to-market operation that many of us lean on for guidance and advice. And I want to introduce Blaine Hitzfield. Blaine is the CEO of Marketing and Distribution. And then one of his brothers, Brooks, is the COO of Marketing and Distributions for Seven Sons Farm. So with that, Blaine, welcome. And we're going to turn it over to you.
Hey, thank you, Gabe, and everyone from Soil Health and Understanding Ag. So glad to be on. So Brooks and I will be tag teaming in this webinar. I'll give everyone kind of an introduction. I'm not going to assume that a lot of folks may not know who we are, Gabe. So I'll give an introduction, and then Brooks will lead most of the training on this webinar because he is operations and boots on the ground with our shipping program, which is evolving by the day as we respond to just the economic forces. And that brings me to the quote I thought I wanted to lead with tonight. And this was actually a quote that Dr. Alan Williams reminded us of probably 6 weeks ago as things were changing and unfolding very fast. And Alan reminded us that in times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. And this is the economic shift, and the shift in the economic winds has been very, very strong. Consumer sentiment and behavior has changed, and I think one of the biggest mistakes that any of us could make is to just assume that this will just all be back to normal here in just a couple weeks. when things started to really take off for our e-commerce business about 8 weeks ago, one of our processing facilities told us that we shouldn't change much and shouldn't prepare for much because they believed that this would just blow over here in the next couple of weeks. Well, I'm glad that we took actions to partner with some new folks on the processing side and took some drastic actions to prepare for kind of an ongoing changed economy. And I think that's what we all need to be thinking about, because when the economic winds shift, what's important is that we think about our positioning in the marketplace. And that's really what Brooks and I will be talking about, because when those economic winds shift, you can either, pull down your sail and duck and hide, or you can do nothing and get blown over by the crosswinds, or we can change our sail. And as farmers and in agriculture, we're due to for changes in our economic marketplace positioning. And what we're seeing right now, and we've been listening to many economists, but what is really the economies that are really strong right now is any online business is very strong, just because there's more people online right now. And anyone in the food economy, retail food space, that economy is obviously very strong. And then you combine that with this idea of food delivery. So online food delivery right now is kind of a magical combination, and it makes sense for a lot of reasons. But the biggest thing is, a lot of folks and a lot of farms have been asking us, do you think that this changed economy is very short-lived? And the bottom line is, if you look at the things that are driving consumer behavior, consumers are really seeking safety, security right now. And if you think about the factors that would relieve that concern for safety and security, we have, probably another 12 to 18 months before a vaccine would be developed, and it would take another 12 to 18 months to get the population vaccinated. So you could say that many consumers won't feel that sense of safety and security until 2 to 3 years. This is a 2 to 3 year changed economy. So I think it's important we recognize that. And there's really quite an opportunity in front of us right now. So what Brooks and I will be talking about is obviously what Gabe said. We're starting a perishable shipping business. And so this is a high level framework that Brooks and I will go over together. But if a lot of you are probably already have kind of understood and heard that the direct to consumer online shipping sales channel or business is really, really thriving right now. If there was ever a time to dip your toe in the water and give this a try, it is now. And I don't think it's too late. I just talked to a direct marketer farmer just 2 weeks ago that started an online shipping option for his customers. And his first week, I think he did like 20 orders, a second week, 70 orders, and it just continues to build. So just a little background for Seven Sons. We were established, I guess back in 2000 is when we started our Seven Sons business and brand, and really kind of got our regenerative farm off the ground and started heading towards more regenerative practices. Some of you may be familiar with Grace Cart, which is our website platform that we started building back in 2016. We built that website platform out of a need to solve some pretty critical problems that we were up against with online e-commerce software. And today, I think there's close to 360 farms that use that online software. But really, we're a farm at heart. That's what we do. As I mentioned, we've been in this for about 20 years. We have, this slide's outdated now. We had 5,500 customers as of 8 weeks ago. I think that number is now at 8,000 customers that we serve. And for sure, shipping has just literally, the shipping sales channel has just taken over our business. But I've got 6 other brothers. There's 7 of us involved. And as of 8 weeks ago, we had close to 25 full-time staff members on our farm. Today, I think we have close to 50. So that number is about doubled in staff in the last 8 weeks, again, due to just the changes in the economy and the demand for shipping online. But we have 550 acres here, and we're all pasture-based. We don't have any row crops. We're all perennial-based. We finish about 200 head of cattle on our farm, and we network with other producers for another 400 to 500 head of cattle that we harvest and direct market to our customers. Same side on the pigs, pastured hogs. We raise pastured hogs. We've got quite a bit of woodland that we run hogs in. During the summer, we'll run hogs in some of the pastures that need a little disturbance. Again, we run about 500 to 600 hogs that we finish solely on our farm each year. Then we have a pastured laying hen operation, and that, I believe, we're around 8,000 hens right now. Roughly about 60% of all the eggs go to our retail markets, and about 40% go to wholesale and distribution markets, but everything marketed under the Seven Sons brand. I like to show this picture here in our introduction because things started literally from scratch for us. This picture was taken right at about the year 2000, which was a big pivot point for us because prior to the year 2000, our farming background, my parents' background, was strictly conventional agriculture. They had up to about 1,000 acres of row crops. All chemical tillage based agriculture. We also had a farrow to finish hog operation on the farm. And, at that time we're farming close to 1,000 acres. And we had that farrow to finish farm operation, a hog operation. And that size of a farm at that time struggled to even support just one family, one person full time. And so in combination with some economic struggles during that time, we had a family member that became very ill from a chronic health condition. And through just a series of events and research, my parents really began to just kind of have an epiphany about how they were farming, the type of food they were raising for consumers. And really got to a point where not only was the farm not profitable, not only were we experiencing a health crisis, but we got to a point where my parents no longer believed in what they were doing, the type of agriculture they were involved in. And, a quote that I always like to remind us of, because this had a big impact on us, is this idea that if you don't change the direction you're going, then you're likely to end up where you're headed. And my parents really wanted to make a change. For one thing, as you can see on this slide here, back here, there were 7 of us brothers. And my parents knew that if they didn't change the direction they were going, there would not be an opportunity, a future opportunity for any of us to stay on the family farm. So they made some drastic changes. We were introduced to a fellow on the left side of the screen. His name is Ray Smith. He's a soil agronomist that really began to change our thinking about agriculture, food, and human health. He began to connect all the dots for us as farmers. And Ray Smith introduced us in the late 90s to Allen Nation and the Stockman Grass Farmer. And that was our initial kind of immersion into pasture-based agriculture. And that led us to our other mentor, Jill Salatin, that really had an impact on our business. And that also led us to Alan Williams, as someone that we've followed longer than what Alan knows that we've followed him and have been learning from him. And these were our mentors. And I think all of us, if you're on this call, you're thinking differently. You're thinking about pursuing a different direction. Maybe you already have. And you've all had mentors that have inspired you, that you are following. And that's where it starts. It starts with that excitement, that learning, and that's where it started for us. We made a bunch of changes as I got here up on the screen, kind of our transitions. It was really tough for us closing the doors to our conventional farming operation. We sold all the hogs. Financially, our farm was not in good shape. But it required us, as we made a transition, to continue to make more investments. We had to make investments in defensing infrastructure, converting a row crop land to permanent pasture is obviously not a cheap thing to do. And then we had to borrow a lot of money to get into the cattle business and start raising cattle. But we were very excited about the new direction that we were going until we hit that, what I call, and what we kind of call here at Seven Sons, the third year struggle. And that's where, if any of you have gone down the path of making a big change, and if part of that change on your farm was venturing into direct marketing, what you're going to find is you spend your first 2 to 3 years getting all your infrastructure set up, making all your capital investments, and all your time and energy goes to that. And you have this vision of building a direct marketing business. But about the third year is when you have product ready to sell, and then you find out this product doesn't just sell itself. Customers just don't appear out of thin air. And that's that third year struggle that can be really hard to get past. And I always tell folks, I feel like we got stuck in that third year struggle for probably about 10 years. But I tell you all this to say it's not been easy to get started. It's taken a lot of perseverance. The last thing I want to leave with anybody is that it's easy to make a transition. But you can be successful. We have made it through that transition, and part of our mission now is to help as many farms as we can through their transition, so they're not stuck in that third year struggle for 10 years like we were. So here's what we discovered and this talk is focused on direct marketing. And at a high level, what we've discovered, that to be successful as a direct marketer, our farm has to have a quality product. So we have to compete in the economy of quality when we're selling food products. We have to compete in the economy of trust or authenticity. And ultimately, we have to compete in the economy of convenience. And I bring this up because I think as direct marketers and as a farm producing a food product, especially a regenerative farm, obviously, you already have a quality product built into your business model. You can compete in the economy of quality. You can outcompete Amazon in the economy of quality. You can also outcompete Amazon in the economy of trust and authenticity. 2/3 of our job as direct marketers is already done for us, built into our business model. We're at Seven Sons, I feel like we spun our wheels for a long time, is not recognizing how important it is for us to put ourselves in our customers' shoes and think about convenience. And that's what this webinar is all about. Building a shipping program is basically solving that convenience conundrum. I bring up companies like this. These companies are growing hand over fist. ButcherBox, Crowd Cow, Thrive Market. There's a list of 10 others that I could bring up of the companies that are shipping to people's doors, selling products like grass-fed beef and pasture-raised foods. And I bring this up because the only reason these companies exist and the only reason that they are thriving right now, it's not because their product is exceptional quality or that they have an awesome story to share. It's simply they're filling the convenience gap. That's the only reason these companies exist. And so it's important that if we can just focus on completing this three-legged stool is what I call it, quality, trust, convenience, that's the secret to thriving. And we're seeing a lot of examples of farms across the country that are exceeding this in this area. If you're familiar with White Oak Pastures, quite a business, an inspiring story. But I was just talking to Will at a conference just a couple months ago. We were at Whole Foods. And Will told me that shipping to customers' doors, so home delivery, is by far his fastest growing sales channel. And I know that in the last 8 weeks, their business has absolutely exploded. This is the Boatwright family, David and Mariah from, I think it's Boonville, Missouri. They have been clients of ours for a while, and they just launched a shipping business. I think it was towards the beginning of this year. That was great timing for them. They're doing, I believe shipping is their fastest growing sales channel right now as well. This is Jacob Coleman from Ohio. Jacob just launched his shipping program. I want to say about 4 weeks ago. Brooks, you might know better, but he's already getting a steady stream of orders coming in. Honestly, beef from Mississippi. I love this. Jacqueline Rogers, who handles direct marketing there, and the owner operator, posted this in our Facebook group the other day. Her sales, direct marketing sales through Grace Cart in April 2019 was 11 orders. This April 2020, 266 orders. So it's very exciting to see consumers really shift. And as they seek that safety and security and that food source, they're shifting to establishing a relationship with farms. So our job right now is to provide that convenience. If you can do that along with a quality product and put yourself out there, tell your story and build trust, in this economy right now, this is the positioning that you need to be thinking about. What we've discovered as farmers in the last 8 weeks is that it's not a great idea to just have one buyer of your pork, for example. If you're selling to Tyson Foods, one buyer, one processor, that goes down, and you're euthanizing entire buildings of pigs, or you're dumping milk on the ground. That's a marketplace positioning problem. And shipping is a great opportunity. So Brooks, I'm going to turn it over to you now to get into the nitty gritty of how to get a shipping program launched off the ground. I know that's what everyone here is waiting for.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Blaine, for that introduction. I think in order for me to share my screen, okay, there we go. Yeah. All righty. Well, I just want to piggyback off of kind of where Blaine left off there. We're grateful for Alan, Gabe, and the whole Understanding Ag team for having us on this call to share our experience on this topic. So what we're going to be doing here is I want to focus on not just we want to stay high level. We want to get you guys the meat and potatoes of this, but we also want to stay high level and not just focus and get in the weeds of how to get a box effectively shipped to your customer's door frozen. We will talk about that, but there's a lot of different ways to make that happen. And there's a lot of variables that are involved based on where you're located, the type of product that you're offering. So what we want to do on this call is really just focus on the 3 fundamentals that you really need to get right in order to have success with perishable shipping. And in these, 3 key ingredients, they're going to be true no matter what scale you're at, what product you offer, and where you're located. So, as Blaine mentioned, we started shipping about, I would say it was probably about 3 years ago or so. Blaine, is that about right?
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And, when we wanted to get started into this, it had been on our radar for a long time, but we had quite a few, limiting beliefs and just barriers and problems that we encountered that got in the way of getting this off the ground. I would say by the time that we made the decision that we wanted to start perishable shipping, it was probably a full year until we actually made it a reality. And, what we've discovered, and if you've been exploring this, for a while on your farm as well, there's kind of some common problems that we've seen across our clients and many other farms who get into this when it comes to getting perishable shipping started. One of the biggest ones that we've noticed is that, there's a lot of moving parts in the world of logistics, so it can be kind of intimidating to know where to even begin. There's no perishable shipping for dummies book that's been written that I know of. So you kind of just got to get involved, and it feels like you're alone to figure it all out. And number 2, once you start to do the research, it doesn't take too long to almost feel like that there's just a barrier to entry, and you have to be at a certain scale in order to effectively start shipping because the costs are just so high when you're starting from scratch, especially when you don't have a lot of experience in this area. But even once we started to learn, through trial and error, what we needed to do, what the cost would be to get involved, I don't think anyone on this call would say that they have an abundance of time available on their hands. So a lot of times it's just having the bandwidth available to invest in new strategies to help move your farm forward. So I'm sure if you're watching this, you can probably identify with a few of those. So what we want to do with our time on this call is we want to help you, number one, just narrow your focus and help eliminate a lot of those moving parts to give you a plan to help get started completely from scratch. We want to help you do this at an affordable cost and keep you from breaking the piggy bank. And we also will spend just a little bit of time. We enjoy marketing, and so what we want to do on this call as well is spend a little bit of time talking about your online web presence when you get started with shipping. Because a lot of folks, if you're watching and you've been in direct marketing for quite some time, you might have multiple different sales channels where you service customers, online via pickup location or take pre-orders for custom beef for your farm store. And once you get all those channels and you're trying to market to customers in one place on your website, it can create a lot of friction and confusion to help online visitors know exactly what path you want them to go down. So we're going to spend some time on this to help reduce some of that friction on your website as well. And then we're going to wrap up at the end by just talking about a few resources that we have to hopefully make life a little bit easier and give you a head start with perishable shipping and selling online as well. So we've created a little framework that we've outlined in another Venn diagram like this, describing those three key ingredients, the fundamentals that we've realized through experience that you really need to get right to have success with this. And number one is just to figure out how to eliminate the complexities. Again, we're talking about the barriers to know where to begin and get started. Once you start doing your research, you'll realize there's just, it can be very easy to get overwhelmed with all of the different options for some of the tools that you need to have and resources you need to have in place to get started. There's probably hundreds and hundreds of different packaging options out there, and they all kind of serve a different purpose and fit different needs based off of your requirements. So it can be difficult to know where to begin there. There's quite a few different online tools and website systems and shopping carts that are available. And all of them are going to tell you that they're the best, but it's hard to know what's going to be worth your investment and what's a waste of money. And then in the world of logistics, of course, there's the common carrier options. They all have different services like overnight, express services. You can ship ground through UPS and FedEx. What do these even mean? Which one do I need to utilize shipping a perishable product? Or do I just skip these carriers altogether and, do my own logistics with my own delivery vehicles instead? So again, lots of complexities, but what we've discovered looking back on our 3 years of experience is that there was one decision that we could have made that would have allowed us to just break through all those moving parts and be able to get started. And it's just by starting with a smaller goal and plan. A lot of times when you think about perishable shipping, a lot of folks think that it means that you need to get set up to service, the entire country, no matter where someone lives. Because if you have an online website, someone could find you who lived on the opposite coast. And what happens is the further the geographic area that you service when you start with shipping, the more complex everything starts to get. If you start smaller and you ship just regionally in a smaller geographic area around your farm, it's a lot easier to get started. So we'll talk a little bit more about what I mean by this.
Brooks, this is basically what you're saying here. This is all about reducing the variables. So the further out that you're trying to ship your products. And that's what everyone thinks. If they're going to get online and ship to people's doors using a company like FedEx or UPS, that you need to figure out how to ship across the entire nation. And 99 times out of 10, you're going to get stuck trying to figure out all the different variables. So if you can just narrow down your radius in which you're going to start off shipping to, you're going to eliminate 90% of the variables. This is the biggest secret that gets farms up and going quickly.
Yeah,
right?
this is exactly that. that line of thought is exactly what took us an entire year to figure this all out, was because we were trying to solve this incredibly complex problem with servicing the entire country. And the variables with servicing someone on, opposite coasts is just, it gets very, very complex to figure it all out. So what we have in front of me here, this is a slide of FedEx's ground transit map. So when you're shipping through FedEx or UPS, we always advise to go with one of the common carriers versus trying to do your own home deliveries, because 9 times out of 10, we're farmers. We're not in the logistics business. We've tried it, but you're going to save yourself a lot of headaches just by piggybacking into the infrastructure that FedEx and UPS have in place. So this is a picture of FedEx's ground transit map. So basically anywhere that FedEx can service from my location, our farm in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and how much time it takes them to service different parts of the country. So ground is always going to be your cheapest shipping option. A lot of times you'll hear folks say that if you're going to ship frozen meat products, you got to use some sort of expedited service like overnight or 2-day air or something like that. But the investments to do that are going to be quite a bit more. So ground is always going to be your lowest rates. So what we recommend when we say starting small is what you can do is you can decide just to service maybe your 1 or 2-day ground transit region around your farm. And that is a much easier puzzle to solve than trying to service anyone who lives in the entire, anywhere in the country. So, a couple of things that will magically happen when you decide to just, maybe start with your 1-day ground transit zone is, one, it's going to be your lowest cost option. Number 2, it's going to get you, again, a consistent transit time of a delivery time of up to 24 hours. And what that means is now that you've taken a lot of the variables out of the equation, you can start building a box template and a packaging template to fit that model, because you know that your box is going to be in transit for 24 hours. So you can start getting in packaging, start running your test to make sure that you learn how to keep product frozen for that 24-hour time window. Versus
and Brooks, can I just sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Emphasize that first point, that ground is the lowest cost option. And the reason that's so important is because if you're going to service the entire nation with nationwide shipping, you have to have built-in economies of scale where you're leveraging massive bulk discounts for air freight across the entire country if you're going to have a price that works for your margin model and your customers' pocketbooks. Where if you just start off with a ground shipping zone, you start off from day one with a low cost shipping template just from day one. So you're skipping that whole need to be a business with large economies of scale, leveraging bulk discounts from FedEx. And 1 and 2-day ground will get most farmers throughout the country, accessible to millions of people. For us, Brooks, how many people can we serve just on our 1-day ground shipping?
Yeah, we're up to, in our market, we can get about 44 million people in that 1-day ground transit region. But yeah, like Blaine said, making this decision, it allows you to tap into some of that economies of scale that some of these larger companies are doing when they are shipping air freight to service the whole country. But if you just start in a regional area instead, you're able to get, similar rate costs that some of those folks would see.
Yeah, and you're also able to give your customers a better value, because as a nationwide shipper, the model that most nationwide shippers use is, well, I'm just gonna have a flat rate price. And so the person I'm shipping to that's just an hour away is going to pay the same price that the person I ship to all the way in California on the opposite coast. And so your value for that local customer just isn't there. Matter of fact, you're making a lot of margin to make up for the smaller margin you're going to have shipping to the West Coast. So it's really, really smart to start off with 1-day shipping ground, not only for your cost, the value you provide for your customer, and Brooks, you were probably going to hit on this in just a bit, but the marketing synergy that it brings you to stay within a regional area of your farm, you're just going to convert so many more website visitors as a buyer because you're closer to them. It's a sense of, again, security. It's a sense of authenticity. The closer you are to a customer, the easier it will be to convert website visitors to a paying customer. So, and Brooks, you might be sharing this, but how many, we currently, just because we've established some scale, we can reach, I think, every state in the country right now. But even with that said, what percentage of our business comes from that 1 and 2 day ground zone?
We're right at far over 90%, which most people are surprised to learn. But you know, if you're watching this and you've already been direct marketing, if you have a website, just like Blaine was mentioning, you already, most of your awareness synergy and your word of mouth synergy is already happening on a regional level. So when you decide to service anyone inside of your 1 day ground transit region, those are, you know, that tells a much better story, and those people are much more likely to convert. Just a few more check boxes and benefits to starting with 1 day ground. You're also able to start with what I call a single box template. And what I mean by this is a lot of the larger companies who are doing perishable shipping, they have a lot of different types of packaging templates and liners to service different parts of the country based on how long it takes to deliver the product. But when you start with 1 day ground, you can just use one type of box that you know keeps product frozen for 24 hours. And then you can buy in bulk on that packaging, buy a lot at a time in order to get leverage discounts and acquire some cost savings. So again, it's another way to try to tap into some economies of scale that you normally would not be able to do if you're doing what everyone else is doing and trying to service the entire country. Blaine tapped on this a little bit, but shipping 1 day ground also reduces the variabilities in your costs. So UPS and FedEx, their cost structures are pretty confusing to understand. They're going to charge you a different price based off of where someone lives, you know, the weight of the box. There's all sorts of fees that could be involved, and it gets even more, the variables just expand again at the further away that customer lives. But if you service somewhere closer to where you're located, your cost structures become much more constant, which makes it much, much easier to understand what are your costs in shipping in order to plan for those when you go to price your products. Blaine hit on this last checkbox as well. As 1 day shipping, it's going to have your highest return on your time because, again, you have that local awareness that's already built for you. And at our farm, Seven Sons, we still it's over 90% of our revenue is happening in this regional area around our farm. The really cool thing is that when you get started with 1 day ground shipping is that you don't have to end it here. Once you know, it's an easier thing to get started, but then you'll start to gain some experience for how all this works. And then you can just kind of expand from there. Maybe you can start targeting that 2 day area and, you know, the rest of the country from there as you gain confidence with this whole system.
Hey, Brooks.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I feel like another, and you may have this later, but another big advantage here to this 1 day zone is that you can ship in that zone without having to ship with dry ice. You can use alternative coolants because dry ice becomes one of the major barriers. Accessibility to dry ice it becomes a major barrier to anyone trying to ship online. So, you know, what this 1 day ground zone allows you to do, starting with that, is you get your feet on the ground, you get some experience and some volumes build up to the point where you're going to be at a point where you can start to meet some of the minimums from the dry ice suppliers to start getting a delivery, to start getting dry ice at a reasonable price. And then that gives you that next step up into your 2 day zone, because your 2 day ground zone will most likely require some dry ice. It's much easier anyways in that zone, but it's really, I think, sequencing how you're starting your shipping program. And before you know it, you just got to get started. And before you know it, you know, you'll be shipping enough boxes to start getting supplies in, expanding your rate.
And that's even more true depending on where you're located. If you're located more rural, which a lot of us are, or if you live maybe more in the mountain region, getting access to dry ice can be quite a barrier, especially at an affordable cost when you're just starting out. So, you know, getting, again, there's a lot of benefits to picking up that volume, servicing your one-day ground region, and you can continue to expand from there.
Brooks, 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 I don't know. Do you have something over your microphone? Because your voice, at least on my end here, your audio is kind of cutting in and out.
I think so. Maybe I move is that better?
That's better. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll share resources at the end. So don't worry. There's links. You can just Google FedEx ground transit map. You can pull this map up, type in your zip code to see what does your transit times look like for your area. It's always fun to do the research. And then I always like to overlay that ground transit map with another tool that we found called, it's from statsamerica.com. It's called their big radius tool, but basically it's just a demographics tool where you can type in the city that you live in, give them a mile radius tool around your city, and it will pull up demographic areas for that search result. So here you see I've done a search result similar to where our one-day ground region is. And that tells us, you know, the population density that we can serve in this region. So it's always fun to do the research to see what kind of opportunity lies for you by making this happen. And again, it's going to be different from wherever you are across the country. Some of you might have a little bit more motivation to pursue that 2-day ground option if depending on, you know, how populated your area is. And you know, FedEx's transit times are greatly affected by regions as well. So it's always good to do the research so that way you can see where do you really need to target.
And I just want to emphasize, go back to that slide there, Brooks. This is what we're talking about with marketplace positioning. Position yourself where you can get your product delivered to a customer's door. In our area, that one-day zone, 44 million potential. Within reach. That is positioning. And this is why Brooks and I have become very passionate about teaching perishable shipping, because for too long it's been like like the good old boys secret. You know, you have to have all the trade secrets, you have to have scale built in, and the reality is you do not have to. Putting the pieces together and getting the information out, I believe can, you know, about perishable shipping and tapping into services like FedEx and UPS at, you know, from scratch at a small scale, I think just represents one of the biggest direct marketing opportunities. And it has been for years, and even more so now.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, being able to, you think about the opportunities that are amongst us today, where there's more training and education on how to do this. You know, FedEx and UPS, they already have these incredible logistics networks that are in place. You just have to learn what are the tricks in order to tap into that network. But this is definitely the path that we've, you know, now looking back on our experience, we recommend folks to go partner with UPS and FedEx, because it'll make life so much easier than trying to figure out how to do your own logistics. So we'll keep this moving. Again, you can take this in phases. We'll make sure we get to your guys' question. One question you might be thinking of while you're watching this is, okay, so if I already have a website, how in the world am I going to limit, you know, folks who visit that website by a geographic area and keep, you know, folks who live outside of my one-day transit region from buying my products, which is a really good question. This is something that we encountered when we first started doing this. And again, it's one of the reasons why it took us so long to figure this all out. But since we had developed GraceCart, you know, for our shopping cart system, we decided to try to build some tools into that to try and solve you know, these problems that we faced as a small farm doing regional perishable shipping. So what we did is we created a tool that we call delivery zones. It basically gives you the ability in the shopping cart for you to input the zip codes that are inside of your transit region that you want to service. So you can get that information from your carrier, UPS or FedEx. You can put that into, we're able to put that into our GraceCart shopping cart system. And then that allows our shopping to be limited by certain zip codes. So folks go to the website, they click shop now, they have to enter that zip code, and that will tell them if they are serviceable in our area or not. So again, it's we're taking this, just tapping into technology to try and make life easier when it comes to the unique problems that we face with perishable shipping. So that is key ingredient number one. The second thing that you need to get right in order to have success with this enterprise comes down to pricing. So this is kind of one of the more common questions that we'll get with perishable shipping, and it's, how do I charge my customers for the cost of shipping? Because again, there are quite a few costs that are involved in all of this that start to add up. And if you're already direct marketing, you probably already have a price point that's set for your customers. So how do you go about, forwarding this increased shipping cost onto this new enterprise and folks that shop for it? So when we got started, we just took the method of the easy route, was to just figure out what was our, what kind of cost we have in shipping. And we just forwarded all that cost onto our customers as a high cost delivery fee. So the way this worked on our website is, folks would just shop the store, and then they'd be surprised with a high cost delivery fee at checkout. But the online, this was a big problem for us, and we were struggling to see, the growth that we normally thought we would have, because the online shopping has changed. Consumers are no longer used to having to pay or see delivery fees more than hardly $10 or $15 when they're shopping online. And it's just the way that it is. Folks like Amazon and some of these other large retailers online, they have created a new perception for consumers and what they expect to pay for delivery. And you can do on this. There's so many online reports that go in deeper on this. This is a report from Walker Sands that says, in this study, they found that 9 out of 10 consumers say that free shipping was the #1 incentive for shopping online more. So, excuse me.
And Brooks, just to pick up on that, we've talked to a lot of farms that have started their shipping business, and one of the biggest game changers for them in increasing sales was simply to begin offering some kind of a free delivery threshold. So order so much and get free delivery. That tends to always be one of the biggest game changers for anyone pursuing perishable delivery foods. Exactly.
Yeah, and you see that, again, this is something that consumers really appreciate and start to expect. And we hear from a lot of folks who bring up kind of some ethical questions when it comes to building their, your shipping costs into the price of your product and offering free delivery. But this is something that it's not new. You think about consumers just shopping in a local grocery store. That grocery store, they have freight costs in getting product to the store, but they don't forward that freight cost onto their customers in the checkout lane. They do the work, they do the math, they build it into the price of the product, because it's about convenience for the shopper. How inconvenient would it be to be in a grocery store and then be surprised by some delivery fee at checkout that you weren't able to plan for ahead of time? And it's the same way online. A lot of consumers are shopping on a budget. So if they're on your online shopping cart viewing your products, if they might be on that budget, they don't want to be surprised by a high cost delivery fee that they weren't planning for at checkout. Because if they're on a finite budget, then they either got to go back to your shopping cart and remove some items, or more than likely, they're probably just going to exit and choose another option that does offer a more affordable or free delivery cost on their website. And if you do the research, you'll see that, folks who are having success with online marketing, with similar products as ours, they all are either offering some sort of, opportunity for their customers to acquire free delivery. It's actually, you'll see a lot of folks who will use it as, a carrot that allows people to get their basket size higher. So free delivery over $100 or $150 a purchase or something like that. But again, this is one of the things that you really need to be sure that you do the math ahead of time and get right. That way, or else with just the way online shopping is, you're not going to see the number of visitors convert that you would without this. So
probably the quickest way to sabotage your online shipping business is to have exorbitant shipping fees.
I would say out of the three fundamentals we're going to go through, they're all important, but this will be for sure the one that holds you back from hitting, any kind of economies of scale that you want to see. So another question you might be asking is, okay, so if I start shipping, but what if I already sell online? Maybe you have a pickup location business, or you take pre-orders on your website. You already have prices figured out for those type of customers, and you don't want to, increase your price for those customers, because if they're not going to be buying through your shipping program, you don't want them to have to be penalized for the increased cost that you have. So how do you manage one website with multiple different prices? So again, this was another aspect that we felt like was an opportunity that we could incorporate into the Grace Cart shopping cart. So we created what we call pricing groups, and this gives us the ability to assign different pricing tiers on our products to the different channels or the different ways that customers would buy from us on our website. So a little bit of a visual for how this works. Someone goes to our website, sevensons.net, they hit shop now, enter their zip code, and then that will tell us if they are serviced in our home delivery area, and it will display to them the price that we have calculated with built-in shipping costs right there in the shopping cart. So that way they don't get surprised with a high cost fee at checkout. And same way, if someone's ordering for local pickup, maybe at our farm store, they're going to see a discounted price for that shopping option. So again, this is just logic, but in settings that you're able to, program into your shopping cart, but it allows you to create a very tailored and specific shopping experience for the different type of customers that you would serve. It's the most fair way to go about it, in an online shopping setting.
Yeah, and Brooks, I might add here, we've really noticed a change in customer sentiment towards delivery fees, because when we first started off, we did charge delivery fees. And it was interesting to see how that sentiment changed as Amazon, really pretty much has changed the online shipping world when it comes to expectations from the consumer. And early on, consumers got it. Hey, it's this perishable foods. It's going to cost to get to my door. But as of recent, what we found is that people almost view it as you're trying to trick them with artificial low prices on the front end, and then you're trying to trick them into a delivery fee, and they actually view it as being deceitful. And I just point that out because so many farmers I talk to say, well, I need to make sure I separate for my customer my shipping cost versus the product cost. And again, it's not how you're going to win trust, and it's not how you're going to create a convenient shopping experience. So what Brooks just described, literally by asking the customer to do one thing, just one thing, enter their zip code, we are basically, the website is basically making 10 different decisions in the background for the customer that they don't have to make. We're taking that decision, that friction out of the buying process, and literally leapfrogging them ahead in the buying process to show them exactly what's available for them in their area and what the prices will be. And that's something too, Brooks, you're probably going to mention, is that one of the tricky things, if you're in direct marketing, you're doing some local sales, you may be direct marketing something like eggs, where someone can order eggs on your website for a local pickup or pick up at your farm, but you obviously don't want to try to ship eggs via FedEx or UPS. And so Grace Cart, again, makes that decision for the customer. It gets their zip code, it sees where they can be serviced, and it dynamically displays the products that you are able to ship to their zone. So all that's handled in the logic of how we built the platform. And again, these are just simple solutions to very complex problems. Mm-hmm. And that's our theme at Seven Sons. We're all about coming up with simple solutions to complex problems.
Yeah, the beauty of it is that the customer, they don't have to even understand the whole process that goes into it. It creates a very simple and easy to understand shopping experience for them. That is the most convenient. And yeah, like Blaine mentioned, you see, I think as markets grow and develop, you start to see some standardization. So as more consumers are turning to the internet to purchase consumables, it's creating a little bit more standardization, where you're seeing kind of, Amazon and, some of these larger companies are setting precedents in consumers' mind for that shopping experience that they expect everyone to follow. So delivery fees is definitely one of those. I think, we take pride in the Google reviews that we get. We got quite a few. We're grateful for quite a few 5-star reviews, but I think recently, before we had transitioned to building in the cost of shipping into our products, one of our only 1-star reviews was because someone was frustrated by how high our delivery fees were. And at that time, we thought we were doing them a favor by being transparent about the pricing. But yeah, it's interesting to see how that perception shifts. This is another example of one of our client sites. You can see local pickup, they have a different price than the home delivery option. And this is actually Gabe and Paul's site, Nourished by Nature. I have the slide in here just to display that we actually added some improvements to how this whole process works and some other options as well. If you don't want your customer to enter in a zip code, some folks don't like to have people go through that step, which is fine. You can also require that your prices are just hidden until someone creates an account and they do that step afterwards. So I think Paul has implemented this on the Nourished by Nature site as well. As Blaine mentioned, he was talking a little bit about how you can tailor your product selection based off of where customers are located and how they're buying from you on your website as well. So if you're watching this, you're thinking about products that don't ship very well, you can tailor that those product offerings based off of how people are buying from you on the website. So Blaine gave the example of eggs. We had other things like really any non-frozen items. Once we started using dry ice, did not work very well when we started shipping because the dry ice would freeze items like that. So we're thinking like some of our dairy products and the non-perishables. So what this feature, again, it allows you to do is it allows you to just tailor these products based on how people are shopping. So if someone's shopping for pickup at our farm, they'll see our eggs at the price that we would normally display those. And if they're shopping for our shipping program, they'll see this egg kit box that we created that has extra packaging that allows us to ship multiple boxes at a time. So again, it's just creating this tailored experience and trying to create what we call an A+ online shopping experience. So I created this slide just to kind of show what we're doing, again, to try to take, as Blaine was mentioning, that friction off of your website between a customer landing on your homepage and making the decision to support your farm and to do business with you. So if you're, without some of the tools that we're talking about, there's a lot of things that someone would have to know when they're shopping. If they go to sevensons.net, there would be a lot of things they would have to know before they could get the checkout. They would need to know if they live in our delivery area. They would have to know what products are available to them. They'd have to know what the pricing structure looks like. And all of that just creates, confusion. A confused customer will never buy, is one of the quotes we like to talk about quite a bit. So again, just by doing this one step, by asking for that zip code, it removes all of that friction and just creates an easy path that's convenient for folks to shop and buy from you. So again, I do think that this is one of the most, this is the more important of the three options, but you do need to have all three in place to get started. So the third kind of pillar or foundation that you really need to get right, this is the third secret ingredient, it's to leverage your economies of scale. So economies of scale, anyone who's been in business very long, we all love this. It's kind of really the reward we get after breaking through that third year struggle. So as you start to pick up some volume, you start to get some of your different, input costs to scale as a result of volume. An example for us on our farm, we hear a lot of farms say that, a laying hen enterprise is one of their least profitable production enterprises on their farm. But we find that it's our most profitable production enterprise. And it's just because of one thing. It's because of economies of scale. Once we were able to build the enterprise to a certain volume, those cost structures just started to work out where, we were able to achieve a higher margin with this product. So again, economies of scale, it's real simple. This is just, the cost that you have in producing a unit that you can see here on this vertical axis. And as you're able to scale, ideally that cost is able to go down as you produce more output on a certain product. So how this ties in with your shipping enterprise, which is really beautiful, is that you can actually tap into some economies of scale when you're starting completely from scratch. We'll talk a little bit more about how I mean, but this is a little spreadsheet that we created that just basically talks about some of the different costs that'll be involved to get your shipping enterprise off the ground. On the left-hand column, we have overhead costs. In the middle, we have your input costs. And then, of course, your output is, the final product that's being delivered to your customer's door. So this is all the resources that go in to produce that output. And basically, there are just 3 areas that if you focus and you make some calculated decisions, you can really leverage your cost even when you're starting completely from scratch. And it's in your packaging, so the boxes and the insulated liners that you'll use to ship your product, the coolant, so we're talking about either your dry ice or your gel packs, and then your shipping spend. So that's going to be the fees that you'll pay UPS or FedEx to deliver your product. Because basically what you can do here is you're able to, when you're starting completely from scratch, you can make some very calculated investments to buy in bulk, to purchase these products and get them at a much lower cost without necessarily having to achieve that scale when you're first getting started. So something.
Yeah, and Brooks, I just wanted to emphasize as you go back to that kind of the list of different. I mean, I don't know how many times I talk to farms and they'll spend weeks researching, the email service newsletter provider they're going to use and trying to find the lowest cost, cheapest per month internet service provider, or as we are very familiar with, trying to find the cheapest website platform. It's like, guys, wake up. These are your costs that aren't really going to move the needle in your business. Again, what Brooks is telling you here is these 3 costs: packaging, coolant, and shipping spend. That's where 90% of your effort needs to go when it comes to leveraging a better price, doing your homework, doing your research. Forget about you can optimize your overheads later. Get these inputs right, and sequence that correctly, and that'll give you a big head start.
Yeah, and spending time quoting and researching and figuring out what different packaging options are out there and what you can get at your lowest, the best price. That's going to be where your best time is spent. And the beauty of it is you don't have to wait till you receive your first 1,000 orders to get the bulk discount for buying 1,000 boxes. You can do that at any point. It just takes, an investment to make that happen. But then you're operating your shipping program at the economic models of, shipping out 1,000 orders because you're able to get those discounts by buying the packaging in bulk.
Yeah, Brooks, I think that brings up a common complaint we hear from folks trying to get into shipping perishable foods is, they get on the first website they can think of for supplies like uline.com, and they start pricing, buying 3 or 4 cases of coolants, gel packs at a time, buying maybe 25, shipping coolers at a time. You start getting the cost from that, and you realize, well, this isn't affordable. It's going to work. Well, Brooks and I are going to tell you, no, it absolutely will not work. You're not going to be able to run a shipping program by ordering 3 cases of coolants, every month when you think you need them, or 25 shipping boxes the next time you need your next 25 shipping boxes. You will have to make some initial investments. And when we say initial investments, maybe figure $3,000 or $4,000 in getting some of these supplies in. And that number, and this is a mindset thing, that $3,000 or $4,000 in packaging and shipping supplies always scares everybody. But think about all the different costs that you throw money at on your farm and in your operation. And this is small potatoes in the context and the perspective of of how this moves the needle on your farm. Being able to have supplies on hand, at a price that works economically, and being able to open you up. Again, think back to one of those earlier slides, open you up to 44 million people. Again, this is a very, very small cost and a very wise investment to put some capital towards this. Don't shortchange this. Again, don't treat this as something you order your couple of packs of supplies every month. And I emphasize that because I see too many farms that get hung up here and not willing to just put a little more investment. You probably have an ATV on your farm. You probably spent $4,000 to $5,000 on breeding stock before. On one bull shipped in from somewhere. This is worth far, far more than that to give this a try.
Well, it's true. There's probably no other decision you can make to spend a couple $1,000s and be able to service, a couple million people, at least have that opportunity for folks who live in that area to have a very convenient option to purchase your product. And
think of this as investment per customer accessed. So, take $5,000, say you spend on shipping supplies, divide that 5,000 by the number of customers that you can now access. No other form of investment will create a ratio so effective than putting money right here.
So the way we recommend going about this is, and the way that we did it at our farm is we started piloting our shipping program with common, the first place we could find packaging. So, we could grab liners off of Uline and started buying some gel packs by the case, but that was just to test and pilot, start shipping out those TEP boxes, doing a lot of our own thermal tests to make sure we found the right packaging that worked for us, and really just work the kinks out of our system and really kind of just gain that experience. So that way we could move forward with a larger investment of a couple $1,000s in a template that we were confident worked. We're just reducing the risk in our research phase of piloting, some of those more common options where you could find packaging like uline.com. So that's the way we recommend going about it. Find some folks where you can get samples, start doing that test. Once you're confident you have something that works, then it's not nearly as risky of an investment. It's a very calculated investment to get this cost lower. So that's focusing on the pack. You have something you want to add? I see you raising.
Yeah, if I could. So one of your biggest areas for saving money on these shipping supplies is finding a manufacturer or a supplier or a warehouse that's near to you, because what happens is someone like Uline ends up getting a lot of cost wrapped up in logistics of getting that material to you. And so that's where we have found a lot of all of our savings coming in, not only buying in bulk, but finding that nearest supplier. So we really lucked out, but we're always looking. We're always looking for that next best supplier. And we're always quoting this out. Recently we've been quoting shipping supply cost out every 2 to 3 months. We're always connecting with new suppliers. And now we're at the point where those suppliers are seeking us out, and we just send them some numbers and they run quotes for us. But we started with a biodegradable liner that's being manufactured just up in Detroit, so just a few hours north of us. And that's, again, that was our best cost footprint so far. So probably one of the biggest things, Brooks, to do is try to ask people that maybe are in your area, that maybe they're selling a different type of product than you, a perishable product, food product, and ask them where they get their shipping supplies, where they get their dry ice, where they get their coolants. That too has probably been one of the biggest wins for us. Even though we've done a lot of homework and research, just 3 weeks ago, I was talking to our Tony Woods, who supplies us with wild caught salmon. He's a fisherman up in Alaska, and he in the off season he lives in Illinois. And just a passing conversation, he gave me a resource for where he was buying his dry ice. It was about half the cost of our dry ice, and at that time, or at this point, we're using like 20,000 pounds of dry ice every week. Talk about just one conversation from a friend, huge savings. So try to find people in your area that are already doing this. Hopefully if you can find someone who's doing it at scale, and they're going to have an abundance of resources in your region for those key strategic suppliers.
And again, it's time well spent on these areas because the opportunity is so high for finding that right contact. Just like that example Blaine gave of us being able to cut our dry ice costs in half, which I really added up when you look at it on an annual basis. So it's worth the time investment. Do the legwork and research here. Of course, we can share our packaging options that we've used in the past, and we will get to that on the call here. But again, finding something locally in your area is probably always going to be your best option for you. But that's packaging and coolant. On the shipping spend side of things, when you're talking about the fees you'll pay UPS and FedEx, we actually have a much easier solution for you to be able to tap into some economies of scale than making a large investment on the packaging. And it's through what we call authorized resellers. So basically what I mean by that is there are these companies that exist that basically act like a freight broker, where they're a middleman in between you and UPS or you and FedEx. So what they'll do is they'll team together with a large group of shippers who are all shipping a lot of volume, and they will go and quote all that volume out to UPS and FedEx to try to acquire the best rate. And then they pass on a lot of that savings onto the shippers who make up the volume. So it really is like a traditional bulk buy program. So it's pretty simple with how they work, but this will get you instant savings, even when you're starting completely from scratch, versus the worst thing you could do is just take your first boxes and take them to the UPS store or the FedEx store and pay full price. This is a very, very simple decision. It doesn't take nearly as much legwork, and you'll start saving right away. So we have a resource guide that we wanted to share with everyone on the call. We call it the Perishable Shippers Toolkit. Basically, this has been kind of consolidated over our years of shipping for the different companies that we've gotten packaging from, dry ice, gel packs, the different shipping resellers that we've used for rates, even goes into some of the hardware and that we use for label printing and things like that. So we didn't hold back. We put all of the contacts that we've developed over the years and some of our clients have shared with us as well through the Grace Cart system, and packed them into this resource guide to help you get started on that research process for trying to find what are going to be the best options for you to acquire packaging and be able to tap in, make those calculated investments and tap into economies of scale in order to, effectively get into shipping at a cost that your customers are willing to pay. So now that you have the resource guide, again, what we recommend is starting with just ordering your samples with the packaging and the gel packs. Start conducting thermal tests to make sure that the packaging options that you're trying to evaluate work for the product that you sell. And when you're doing your tests, we recommend that you just start with, a small typical order that you might see on your website, and just sacrifice that product, start conducting tests. And if you have, if that product goes bad or it all falls out, just refreeze it, use the same product and keep doing your tests. That's going to save on some product during the whole thing. And then once you've gone through that process, you are confident in the, packaging option that you can move forward with, then you can make that calculated. Maybe it's even like a 1-year investment, maybe enough packaging to last you a year's worth of time. That's a lot of time, the type of investments that we're making in order to achieve our best possible rate that we can sustain with those volume prices in these 3 areas. And as Blaine mentioned, we rinse and repeat. We do this we at least are on a cycle of doing this every 6 months, where we revisit these 3 areas. We look at who are we buying packaging from, who are we buying gel packs from, who's our shipping carrier that we're using, quote them out for other options to see what's going to be our best leverage rate. And that the investment and the time to always revisit this, the savings that we get from this area, it's some of the easiest savings that we get every single year. And it just helps make that shipping program more profitable as we scale. So those are the 3 areas, but I don't know if you have anything else that you wanted to add to this as final thoughts before we continue to move forward.
Hopefully everyone caught it there. Your little simple trick for not wasting a bunch of product when you're doing your thermal test. I mean, literally, we've done hundreds of thermal tests, and everyone gets hung up here because they think that they need to be testing, you know, the shipment to a customer's door. Like, you don't need, all you're doing is testing time and temperature. So just mock your own scenario and test that yourself. And again, don't be afraid. Create sacrifice product. Grab 20 pounds or whatever your average size order you think will be, you know, whether it's 15 pounds of product, and start doing your thermal test. Don't freak out if it all thaws out. Refreeze it, do more tests. And, you know, you can do 80 thermal tests on the same products, and it doesn't even matter if it thawed out, you know, 80 times. Again, just use it as sacrifice product, because that is time well spent because you do not want to do your thermal test on customers. That's the last thing you want to do. The last thing you want to do is get in a year's worth of shipping supplies that aren't going to make it in the summertime because you haven't done enough thermal tests. So that's really critical. Your thermal testing is absolutely critical, and you need to do it for your environment. You know, if you're in the South and you're one day shipping zone, like for example, Honestly Beef, they're in Mississippi. They're shipping in the zone always going to be far warmer than what, you know, Paul and Gabe Brown's one day shipping zone is going to be. So you've got to do your own homework. Yes, people like us and other people shipping, they can give you their experience, their recommendations, the templates, the thermodynamic footprint that they're using, but you have to do your test. You're held responsible. I don't ever want to hear from someone that says, hey, your box template didn't work for me. That's your responsibility, and it's just a matter of putting the time in to the test and track your tests and try to account for the different temperature, seasonal variations. And something, Brooks, that we didn't mention here, but you really want to do your thermal test and add at least an additional 12 hours to that time, because if your shipment gets held up a day, you still want that product to arrive to your customer in acceptable condition. And a lot of this too, I mean, let's face it, you're going to have some delays. And right now, FedEx and UPS is so busy. I mean, they are inundated, and we are experiencing some delayed shipments. So we're relying upon the extra dry ice that we're putting in the box to give it that extra day, so that if a shipment does get behind, it still makes it to the customers okay. So you want to build in that extra forgiveness. And a lot of this has to do with building in the expectation for our customers. So, you know, when our customers ordering online and in their email confirmations and delivery reminders that go out via email that, hey, your shipment's on its way, we have, you know, FAQs in those emails that say, hey, what if my package arrives partially thawed? We let them know. Here's the steps you take, and it's perfectly fine to refreeze partially thawed products. And we really just start answering that question ahead of time and build in a proper expectation for the customer. And we even include that on the delivery insert. Hey, don't freak out if you notice a little bit of thaw. You know, your product is perfectly fine.
You got to go into it knowing too that you're going to have some hard lessons. So we've shared, you know, from a high level, kind of the three you know, fundamental things that if you get these things right, then you can figure out the details. And a lot of that just comes from experience. It comes from, you know, paying tuition on the job. So there will be hard lessons along the way. But that's the way it goes with any new strategy.
Shipping and starting a perishable food business is a mental game. And it so much comes down to our perspective and a mental game. So you will have some mistakes. You will have some you know, some casualties here and there. And you know, and two, you know, we build in our entire economic model, we build in a 5% loss on all of our products. It's just built in. So when we figure our margin, it already figures at 5% loss, whether that was a seal that broke during transport from the processor to back to our place, or whether that's shipments that failed. There was always that 5% failure rate built into every pound of product that we sell. So just, you know, again, build those kind of things in, realize it's going to happen, and move forward. So
a few more slides before we get to the Q&A. I want to get this through so we can get to everyone's questions. But hopefully, it really does come down to these, kind of these three simple areas. So hopefully this provides a little bit of clarity when it comes to this. Short recap, again, if you don't eliminate complexities and, figure out where to begin, you're going to struggle to get started. Number two, if you don't simplify your pricing, you're going to struggle to convert customers on your website. Really, really important to get this right. And if you don't, identify those economies of scale in your packaging and your coolant, and tap into those with some smart investments, you're going to struggle to have the profit or a price point that consumers are willing to make buying decisions. But if you get all three of these right, then it's a recipe for growth. And this is the blueprint that we have just seen from our experience, and from, we've had the privilege to watch quite a few farms get into perishable shipping through our Grace Cart program. Some of them have a lot of success with it. Some of them, maybe not so much. And the difference between those two spectrums always comes back to one of these three areas from a high level. So hopefully that provides a little bit of clarity. Now from here, like any blueprint, you're going to have to do the work to breathe life into this. Just like the blueprint when you're starting a new project like a house, planning is everything, but the blood and sweat that gets involved when you start implementing and executing. So it's going to take some investments. It's going to take some work. And again, it can be something that can be intimidating to move forward with and get started. But that reminds us of a quote we kind of want to leave you guys with from one of our business mentors, Michael Hyatt. And it's that the most interesting things in life happen just on the other side of your comfort zone. So this is something that always resonates with us when we feel like there's an opportunity on our horizon, but it requires us to, step outside of that comfort zone in order to achieve this. So now that you have the framework, where do you go from here? We just wanted to leave you with just kind of some three maybe next steps to think about. If you're watching this call, you're doing the right thing to invest in the future of your farm by investing in education. And we just always want to encourage folks to continue to do the same thing. So, there's you're seeing a lot of folks who, as, more consumers turn to grass-fed, pasture-raised food products, you're seeing a lot of folks who are giving back to our industry to help other farmers, and that's great. So we encourage you to just continue to invest in knowledge, invest in yourself, join some farm Facebook groups, maybe reach out to maybe a non-competitive business in your area that is doing perishable shipping. Ask them if you can pay them for a day of consulting to learn about their whole process. That will be money very well spent. We have ourselves created more of an advanced training on perishable shipping that goes a little bit deeper into the execution and the details, and kind of just talks about the different variables that we really couldn't get into on a call like this. That's available as well, that we can share more information on. But again, this is always investing in yourself, and investing in knowledge is always the best investments that you can make. If you're watching this call and you don't have a website yet, you might just be getting started. That's going to be something that's kind of going to be a prerequisite to getting started with shipping. So you want to be assured that you establish that web presence. E-commerce has been a fast growing industry, and you see more and more food e-commerce food sales being displaced by online shopping every single year. And when you see an event like the current circumstances that we are in, we see that consumers have even more appreciated, purchasing their products online during a time period like this. So get a website. You can start small. Of course, Grace Cart, we offer a website through our system as well. A lot of established farms have come to use our system. But the main thing is just to get started. There's lots of options out there. You need to get started somewhere. And again, just like anything else, you're going to continue to gain experience from there. And then you can move on to implementing and getting this blueprint that we provided you off the ground. But again, it comes back to investing in that education. So we do encourage you to continue this research from here to make this process happen. But I think that's...
yeah, and Brooks, we do have there's a couple of other resources as far as investing in that education. Again, this has been a high level overview that Brooks has shared with you, but help me out here, Brooks. Five Mary's Farm in California, they have a course. What's the name of that course?
Yeah, there's a few, and we can share links inside as we get to the Q&A, but Five Mary's Farm is an operation from the West Coast that has an online shipping program. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. A few others, I think Alder Springs Ranch is a farm that has been shipping for quite a few years, even longer than we have. And I think they have some online resources on getting started with packaging and shipping as well. So,
you have a 6-week course called the basically it's a perishable shipping launchpad course.
Yeah. So that is an advanced training program that goes, again, much deeper into kind of the topics that we went into today, where it gives you actually more of a 6-week launch plan. So basically, what are the steps that you need to do in chronological order to get your shipping program launched and off the ground, starting completely from scratch. So given current circumstances, and we're getting a lot of questions on this topic on shipping, and just given the current circumstances where a lot of folks have needed to pivot to, distribution options like this, we have made that online resource available to anyone who signs up for our Grace Cart system at no cost. So it's normally a paid program, but it's something that temporarily that we're doing given the circumstances where we felt like the information could be helpful to folks. So we've made that available as well. So if anyone has additional questions on that, we can pass along more information. But at this point, I want to make sure, Blaine, I don't know if you were able to find a link to the perishable shipping toolkit, but
I did. I posted that in the chat there. So anybody listening in, just pull up that chat window, and that download link is in there. So, but that pretty much wraps up the slides that we wanted to go over material.
Gabe, I don't think we have anything else. So if we want to turn it back over to you, we can open it up for Q&A. I think a few have already.
Do you have that? Make sure you pull up that last slide as well, Brooks, that we have, or do you have it in there for the?
Yep, I think so. Here it should be in here.
Next webinar. There we go.
There we go. Well, thank you, Brooks and Blaine. We really appreciate that. I just want to say, as a personal customer of Grace Cart and having used the Grace Cart system for 4+ years, we highly recommend it. They're excellent people to work with and always willing to help you if you have questions. And they have made it very easy to get started in the direct shipping business. So up on the screen now, we have a slide which talks about our next webinar, which will be next Tuesday, May 12th. It'll be at 7 p.m. Central Time. And the presentation will be Regenerating Human Health, Why Nutrient Density Matters, with Sarah Keel. Sarah is a clinical nutritionist out of Maryland, and she's going to talk about the value of sourcing nutrient-dense foods from local farmers and ranchers. So it ties in very, very well with today's topic. We highly encourage you to listen to that webinar as well. So we have a number of questions here, so I'm going to dive right in, and whichever one of you cares to answer is fine. But Kyle and Carrie ask, what if people pick up sometimes and then have delivery other times? Have you had anyone choose different delivery methods and then see the different pricing and ask questions about it?
Yep. Well, we get that question almost every time. Brooks, do you want to talk about the messages at checkout and how that's positioned?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So it does come up. Obviously, we give our customers the option to choose pickup locations or to order for shipping if they live, in a region where they can do that, and they will see the different pricing. So What we have is we have a custom display message that can be customized at checkout. And in that message, what we've done is we've just basically been transparent with our customers, where if they're shopping for shipping, they'll see a message that tells them that our shipping costs have been built into the product prices of the product. And that helps kind of provide that expectation for people if they switch back and forth while they're at checkout and they see the prices change, to hedge off that question.
Yeah, and then like the local pickup, we just let them know this price includes, the price you see for local pickup includes just figure out what the discount is on average from, having it delivered versus picked up. So it might be a 10 to 15% discount. So you're just letting them know, if they're at the checkout screen and they're toggling between local pickup versus shipping, they see, oh, local pickup, lower price, and a message that says, local pickup customers get a 10% discount. So again, so many things can be solved through simple communication and expectation. So
yeah, and the technology, what we've just been trying to do is to create as much flexibility to tailor your system, for these type of use cases. So again, the messages that Blaine's referring to, those can be customized for pickup locations, for your delivery zones, so you can tailor the message and be as specific as you want to be for the different type of customers.
And for most farms, you open up to a one-day ground shipping zone. The majority of your customers, are not going to be close to a pickup location or or if you're offering to pick up at your farm or processor. The people that actually can go in between pickup versus delivery is probably going to be few and far between. But it is a question that comes up, and it's not a problem as long as you communicate effectively and use a tool that allows you to communicate effectively. And again, we've spent literally hundreds of thousands of dollars developing our own software for our farm, and we license it for pennies on the dollar. But what I tell folks is what we've really done is we've simply developed a communications tool. Is all it is. It's just a communications tool, and that's the bottom line. It's all we're creating is communication. So,
thank you. Next question is from William. What breed of hens do you use for your layers?
Oh man, we're the marketing guys. Pretty sure that these are I know we've had Isa Browns, but now there's some different variations of an Isa Brown, but we're pretty much sticking with a hybrid brown laying egg layer.
Right now, we'll take anything we can get. So if you have some available.
Yeah, we're in the market for laying hens. But we have about 8,000 hens on the farm, and we could easily sell eggs from 16,000 hens right now if we could just get a hold of the hens. But yeah, it's a hybrid brown layer. There's a couple of different varieties from different hatcheries. Isa Brown is one. I know there's a couple others that slip my mind, but Gabe, maybe you've got some ideas there too.
Yeah, we use Isa Browns. We just got in a load of them today, as a matter of fact, pull it. So that's what we're using. Work very well in a pastured setting. Next question. Do you have any guidance on determining product mixes and packaging size to start out? Such as with one cow, I can break down to XYZ cuts and ground beef for 5, 10, or 15-pound boxes. I'm trying to figure out an optimal set of mixes to offer based on packaging constraints. And maybe this would be a good place to get into talking about bundling and different packages and how you offer those as compared to individual cuts.
Yeah, I would say that when you're getting started, there's a lot of value in keeping your selection simple, focusing on popular cuts that people are used to, and keeping your inventory and your merchandising fairly simple. There's a couple different ways we can go with this. From a merchandising standpoint, no matter how many different products you're offering, different cuts you're offering. You do need to incentivize bundled and packaged deals on your website, because it does not work to ship $50 worth of meat or 3 pounds worth of product in a box. That's not an economic template that will work, and it's not a thermodynamic template that will work. So you need to use, you may need to use a shipping software like GraceCard, or there's others that allow you to have a minimum amount of product that the customer has to meet in order to qualify for a home delivery. But really, you want to rely less on those minimum requirements and rely more on bundling products together. So for example, we sell a pre-made eighth of a beef that has a set amount of filet mignon, a set amount of strip steaks, Delmonico's, ground beef, and we provide a discount. So we literally build a pricing model so that we can give a discount when they buy an eighth of a beef. And we have some other smaller bundles as well that we can provide. We try to provide at least a 10% discount when they get up to those bundles. For one thing, that's going to simplify your fulfillment processes. When you have pre-built bundles, instead of going around your freezer, looking for different cuts that are on an order, an a la carte order, you can just grab one box that is already pre-made, either by your processor, or maybe you took time to assemble them in a batch process workflow. And you're going to be able to fulfill your orders a lot faster and get your customers up to a cart value of $150 plus a lot easier, with a lot less friction, because you're rewarding that higher cart value. But again, if you're just starting off, I wouldn't recommend going crazy with your cuts. Keep it fairly straightforward and simple. But then as you develop some volume, you can really diversify. And I guess probably the last call, I wasn't on the last webinar that you guys did with Alan. There are big gains to be made through merchandising and getting more creative with the cuts that you're selling. Again, we just find that that's more of a phase 2 to your operation. So I don't know if that answers some of your questions.
Yeah, I was just going to add too that, when you're starting out too, we really encourage people to do, the custom, pre-packaged eighth beef box, or maybe if you're doing pork as well, you can do a quarter pork bundle or something like that. We've arranged with our processor where they standardize what's included in that box. So it makes it really easy for our customers to then buy a fourth of beef, or, all the way up to half or a whole. And it all comes pre-packaged in the same type of box. We just add boxes onto it, which makes inventory much, much easier. And again, you can kind of put some strategy into that for making sure that you're doing some carcass utilization for that bundle as well. So streamlines inventory, makes, the shopping experience still straightforward for your customers, and you still have a product that fits your the economic models of shipping, and avoid those low value orders.
Good. This question, Brooks, maybe you want to expand on what you had mentioned earlier, but do you have a webinar that discusses how to start up this business, not just shipping?
Yeah, Blaine, there's probably a couple of different resources we could mention when we're talking about really, more of just an online direct marketing business as a whole. What we've been talking about today has been specific to starting shipping. We referred to that advanced course that goes even deeper into that topic. But, a few other resources that we have when it comes just to online marketing. There's a free course, Blaine, I think it's at the bottom of our website, called the Farm Marketing Makeover. It's really just a 3 video series of, 10-minute videos or so that we put together, just kind of taking our experience with online marketing, which we've been doing for, quite some time. And just like with this presentation here, we looked at, hey, what, now knowing what we know now, if we could start over from scratch, what are the first things that we would execute on to, trim some time off of that painful learning curve, and try to do our best to share those, those key kind of ingredients to online marketing in a concise way. So that would probably be a good resource to start. Blaine, I don't know if there's any other ones that you can think of, maybe not even, something that we do, but just some resources that you've maybe consumed.
Yeah.
years that
Yeah. Again, we mentioned earlier the Five Marys Farm. They have some small business courses geared towards farms and direct marketing, and there's perishable shipping training in that. We about a year and a half ago we launched a course, very in-depth course called the Profit Platform, and I have been since gotten very busy. We haven't relaunched that course, but probably something we hope to relaunch here in the next 12 months. But that course, we really dove into a lot of the economics of getting a farm up and started and figuring out where your key economic drivers are with especially stacked model enterprises. We talk about a lot of the mistakes that we made during the past 20 years. And so that's probably something that we'll make available in a couple months for farms. So,
Thank you. Next question, and it's up to you how you want to answer this one, but UPS v. FedEx preference. Maybe you want to highlight pros or cons of each.
No, that's a great question. So from a high level, we've utilized both on different times. Generally, I seem to kind of hear a little bit of consensus from folks that they feel like they get a slightly better service quality from UPS. We really don't have enough experience with the two to really voice an opinion on the service quality. What I do and what we recommend for folks when they're getting started is to we showed that map earlier in a slide of FedEx's ground transit map, which showed us how large of a geographic area they could service for us in a 1-day ground or 2-day ground zone. UPS has a version of that map as well. So what we did when we were getting started is we just overlaid those maps, when we just evaluated who could service more people for us in a 1-day ground transit region, which really reflects the opportunity that we had with the two different carriers. And for us, it was FedEx. For you in your origin zip, it might be different. You're definitely going to compare those two maps. But I would say, again, the difference of being able to service, a few more major markets could make a pretty significant impact for you. So that's the biggest thing that we've really kind of evaluated when choosing our option. And that's why we've stuck with FedEx. We still quote out UPS every year because it's an opportunity to pin them both against each other to see if you can leverage your best rate. But when you're just getting started, that's what I would recommend. Look at those transit maps and see who has more opportunity for you.
Thank you. Is GraceCart compatible with QuickBooks and Squarespace?
Yeah, so good question. So for we use QuickBooks Online on our farm for all of our bookkeeping and accounting. So we have a process and a guide that we could share that shows how we go about importing transactions into QuickBooks. We use basically it's a third-party app that allows you to export a spreadsheet and then import it into QuickBooks. It's anything bookkeeping related. If you're like me and you're not thrilled about staring at numbers all day, it can be a process to get implemented. But once you do, the process is pretty simple. It's a few clicks of a button to import transactions into QuickBooks. No integration with Square. I think the other question was for Square. At this point, we do use Square for our own farm. We have an on-farm store here. So it's something that we're looking into at some point to see if we can make work. But yeah, at this point, it doesn't necessarily integrate with a Square or a point of sale system. We're looking at trying to solve those problems directly related to e-commerce in the shopping cart.
So basically, Brooks, you can integrate with QuickBooks between GraceCart. It's just with a third-party app that basically takes the data out of GraceCart and puts it into QuickBooks. So there's a little bit of legwork getting that set up. We have used a lot of different platforms over the years, and everyone, we might be the only software company that's honest when we say integrations with financial tools are never simple. Accounting and financial tools are never simple. So just know that with any platform you're looking at that says we have a quick and easy, smooth integration with a financial accounting tool, that's never quick, easy, and simple, no matter what. But and integrating with Square, Brooks, I mean, that hasn't been a barrier for our business, not having an integration directly between e-commerce and Square. I mean, we're essentially simply running all at the end of the day or the end of the week, we'll take our Square transactions and literally just run it through our GraceCart platform, so that no matter what, the inventory, if we're storing inventory in GraceCart, everything gets adjusted at the end of the day or the end of the week if you want to do a weekly sync, so that all your transactions and sales are still being reflected in one place, because that's important to have all your data, your sales data in one place, one source of truth. And we use GraceCart for that. And then it eventually makes its way to QuickBooks as well. So.
Okay. Any advice on produce shipping? Is it the same concept as the perishable meat products?
Good question.
Yeah, obviously we can't speak from personal experience as far as how the economics work out. Now, from as far as the operational side, I can maybe talk a little bit towards, that part of it as far as keeping product, at safe temperatures in transit and things like that. There's really not going to be a whole lot of difference if you're getting started with an insulated box option and you're using gel packs. That's going to be the main thing. So you don't want to utilize dry ice, because obviously if you're shipping non-frozen items, you're not going to want to, the dry ice is just too cold in a scenario like that. But yeah, again, when it comes to the economic models, there's probably a different basket size that's probably optimal to target to make the margins work out most effectively, that we couldn't necessarily speak to. But from the packaging and kind of the things that we talked about as far as the box goes.
Brooks, you're breaking up.
On a one true regardless of the product.
Okay.
Brooks, you broke up quite a bit there. One comment I want to make there is that when it comes to anything home delivery and shipping, the lower value per pound that product is. Milk, for example, is a lower value per pound, and produce is lower. I understand produce can have a high margin, but it's just lower value per pound. I mean, you just can't get as much in a square cubic foot of a shipping box, as much value. And plus, consumers are buying produce on a more consistent basis, smaller spend per order. And so that does make perishable shipping through something like FedEx and UPS a little tricky, where you may consider pairing produce with protein to get that basket size up and to make that work better for your customers and for you to get a larger purchase in a box. One thing that I will share is that we have had success working with regional citywide couriers. So basically FedEx and UPS, they do a great job serving the entire United States, where every city has its own. Usually there's a lot of different courier companies that you could partner with possibly to deliver smaller basket sizes like produce, for example, at a lower cost per delivery. And we've even been innovative with putting coolers in these courier warehouses in our area, so that we have a tighter, call it a tighter chain of refrigeration from our farm all the way to the courier warehouse. And it just, you have more options working with a citywide courier, but it takes a little bit to get set up with something like that. But it's worth looking into if it's something you want to focus on scaling.
I'll just add to that. Here in North Dakota, we have a regional courier that will deliver to any door in North Dakota for $15 or less. I mean, that is cheap. We can't deliver product for that.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it, but I'm glad they do. So look into those local couriers.
Yes, and to add on to that, we've been able to get two different couriers, one that services the entire state of Indiana and another one that services the whole Chicago and greater area. And we are getting, I think, $8 per delivery, Brooks, on those. So in Chicago, so that's something we can add here. In Chicago and Indiana, we do not use UPS or FedEx. We use those citywide couriers because those citywide regional couriers are so much more efficient at serving those areas. They've built their efficiency into a smaller template that FedEx just can't compete with. The only thing we say there is that those smaller couriers, you have to do a lot more hand-holding when it comes to the implementation, the setup, and really the service side of things. There's just a lot more variables, and your consistency of service is going to vary.
It adds a lot more complexity to it because, again, just their systems can be very different than UPS and FedEx. Definitely, it's worth the time to research and see if you have a courier in your area. I think the toolkit, the resource guide that we shared, actually has a U.S. courier directory where you can search your home state to see what local courier services they are in some of the different major markets that you might service. Definitely worth exploring, but for simplicity's sake, it could be smart too, just to, if you want to get this started faster, you can get started with one of the major carriers like UPS and FedEx. Then you can always continue to look for those local couriers down the road. And if you're saving on costs, then that's just creating more margin for the enterprise.
Okay, next question. Where do you find the authorized resellers?
A Google search will pop up a few. We have, I think, 3 or 4 options listed on the resource guide that we shared that we have worked with and quoted in the past. So I would recommend at least starting with those. There's a couple for UPS, a couple for FedEx. Quote all of them if you want. And again, you can use it as leverage to make sure that you're, acquiring that best price. So usually, if you can have a few options on the table, then that third person that you quote is going to be more motivated to beat that price. So definitely something you can continue to research on, but 4 options that we have at least had some dealings with that we would recommend getting started with.
And on the courier side, there is a national couriers association that lists all the different regional couriers in different cities, and they actually have a conference every year where you can actually go and sign up for matchmaking. Basically, you say what you want from a courier, and it's a pretty cool association and conference every year that you may look into if you're serious about finding couriers that can leverage lower costs.
Okay. What is your standard box size and the approximate weight that you can ship in that box?
We have 3 different box sizes, a large, a medium, and a small. The majority of our orders fit in that medium-sized box, which is external dimensions, I think, Blaine, are 14.5 by 11.5. And that gets about 25 pounds of product. Yeah. Plus some room for at least 8 pounds of dry ice in there as well. When it comes to box sizes, just to expand on it a little bit, the major thing you're going to watch for is try to get maybe 3 different sizes. That's been good for us because you can get different sizes to optimize the dimensional weight, which is how UPS and FedEx will charge you. So you always want to try and get your order in the smallest box possible. But yet you don't want to create too much complexity where you're managing 15 different box sizes and trying to keep all those supplies in stock. So we've elected just to go with 3. And one major thing you do need to look for is on your large box. This year, FedEx and UPS just came out with it's a large box surcharge for any orders that weigh more than 50 pounds. And it's a pretty significant fee. I think it's $25 or so. So pretty much at this point, we don't ship any boxes more than 50 pounds because that fee just, it doesn't make sense to recoup the cost on that. So that's kind of the limit of the high end of what we'll do for a shipment. And then the smallest box, I think, can hold up to about 13 pounds or so.
So again, this comes back to merchandising your bundles. You want to merchandise not only with your economic model in mind, not only with your thermodynamic model in mind, but also with that figuring out who you're going to use to ship your product. If it's going to be UPS or FedEx, like Brooks said, 50 pounds per box is the limit. You go over 50 pounds, you go from 50 to 51 pounds, an extra $25 gets tagged onto that box, and that is not affordable. So when you make your bundles, your eighth beef bundles, your family value bundles, all those different bundles, make sure, we try to target right around a 35-pound bundle. That's nothing more than 35 pounds, because that allows us to add, that 10 pounds of dry ice. And then what you'll find is that when you're selling online, even if you're selling bundles, someone will buy a bundle and they typically will add, 3 or 4 different a la carte items as well to that box. The last thing you want to do is send out a bundle in one box and then have another second box, with just 3 or 4 items in it, because you couldn't fit it in that big box without going over the weight thresholds. So build your bundles around that 35-pound mark. That'll leave you room for extras, leave you room for dry ice without hitting that 50-pound threshold. So.
Next question, talking about the 1/8 box. Does your processor put together your 1/8 beef bundle? And if so, do you put that box into another insulated box in order to ship it?
Yeah, great question. Brooks, I know we've actually made some transitions on that. I know in the past, our processor always made the 8th beef boxes for us, which was great, saved us a lot of time. But recently, we've gotten a lot more creative with our merchandising, and we've got products coming from different processors. So we have a processor that makes the hot dogs, a processor that makes some summer sausage. So we have more value-added products. And so it's made more sense recently for us to actually, and we're set up better now for warehousing here as well, and batch assembly. So we actually make the boxes here now ourselves, because we're assembling products from different processors that are all coming to a central point here. But man, if you can get your processor to do it, especially at a small scale, if you're not set up with a warehouse, with packing tables and really efficient to handle product, if you can get your processor to do it, that's the way to go, I think. Now we do, Brooks, you can probably speak to this. When our processors are making the bundles, they do come back here, and then we have to put them in a shipping box at that point, right?
Yeah. And mostly, I think the main thing to think about too, when you're trying to, work with your processor to package the product the way you want, is you got to think about the end product and what are the different marketing outlets that you have. So if you're just getting started and you're only doing shipping, then yeah, whatever you can do to get your processor to package that that bundle inside of the shipping box, that's going to save you time. We were doing that for a while until we had product coming in from different processors, like Blaine was saying, and it didn't make sense, so we started building them here. So yeah, if you're doing like pickup locations, you're taking pre-orders for pickup at the farm, and you have a lot of orders that are being purchased and they're not delivered through your shipping program, then it might not make as much sense to have your processor do part of them inside of a shipping box or something like that. But yeah, for the far majority of our product, what we do is we have our processor. They will pack it in standard case sizes that have been optimized to fit on a pallet really well. They fit really well on our shelves inside of our freezers, so they're kind of optimized for that. So it's what we use for inventory management to best utilize space inside of our freezers. And then when it comes time to actually fulfill our shipping orders, we will disassemble them from that box that they come in, and they get put inside of the insulated box for shipping.
Thank you. I think we will make this next one our final question, and it is, are you using a CRM system for managing your customers, doing marketing, tracking, consolidated sales across Gracecart and Square? How do you get an overall view across Square/Gracecart?
There, Brooks, I can start to answer this question, but there's where we make sure that every sale goes into, we use Gracecart for every sale. So if it's a wholesale customer, whether it's a restaurant or another retailer that's buying from us, it doesn't matter if they text us, email us. Doesn't matter how we get the order, it all gets entered into GraceCart. Same thing with Square. At the end of the day, those Square sales get moved right into GraceCart. And we actually do it manually. Every week we just get a report out of Square, and it shows us consolidated total of number of items added or sold from that week. And literally it's just one bulk order that we put in GraceCart every week, and it gets all sales integrated. It's not, again, we're not smart enough to come up with complex solutions to complex problems. Okay. We have to keep the solution simple. Don't get lost in the technology and the tools. It's what you put in them that matters. Junk in and junk out of a great tool is still junk. So focus on at least having one point where all your products can go through. I mean, you could probably use Square if that's the point of truth that you wanted to use. Then make sure all your sales go through Square at some point or another. The main thing is that it at least goes through somewhere. Now, when it comes to managing customers, that relationship, customer service, marketing communications, really we use a email marketing software called Drip, and that communicates with the direct integration with GraceCart, so that Drip always knows where a customer is in their journey, how much they bought from us, when the last time they purchased was, so that we can send out relevant and helpful email reminders to those customers. And we also have, Brooks, you probably speak to this better, but we have a customer support email ticketing software called Zendesk that we use. And literally we get over 1,000 emails or text messages, phone calls every week. And we could not manage all those interactions without having a ticketing system where we've got Brooks 4 different customer service staff members that are managing all of those interactions with customers, all those touches per week. So we really use a combination of different tools, to create that CRM experience.
Yeah. And you got to decide what you're trying to do too. So I think kind of the different tools we're talking about solve two different problems. One's for, revenue tracking, as far as, having transactions that go through one system versus the other. Like Blaine mentioned, just make sure that at some point you get it all into one source of truth. That way you can easily, you can put your pulse on the performance of your business with just pulling up a simple report. I think that's one of the big values of running all of that data through our GraceCart system, is just with a few clicks, I can check all of our different channels, see how they're performing. You don't have to consolidate this data from a bunch of different tools. And then on the CRM side of things, when you're trying to manage, your marketing and your communication with your customers, that the Drip CRM platform that Blaine was talking about, that has really come in handy for us because it integrates with GraceCart, the website platform. So it is, and that's an integration you want to make sure happens, because it is keeping track of all of the really just the performance that customers are making on our website and their behavior. So it knows when's the last time they placed an order, and what products they purchased, and then we can create very tailored follow-up messaging around that information. It also ties into Facebook as well, so we can run retargeting ads to people who've purchased from us before or people who've been on our website, which advertising spent on folks who know you versus someone who's never heard about your business before always performs better. So I think on the CRM side, that direct integration is really, really important, where there can be some workaround solutions when it comes to the revenue tracking side of things.
Great. Blaine and Brooks, if any of the viewers this evening want to get in touch with you to learn more about GraceCart or the services you offer, how would they do that?
The best way is probably just to send us an email at support@gracecart.com. The website is gracecart.com, where obviously folks can go to learn more information, and there's quite a bit of documentation and videos on there as well. Some of the free resources that we were mentioning on this call are going to be hosted there. But any specific questions that if we weren't able to get to your question on this call, feel free to use that email address and we'd be happy to be in touch.
Something, Brooks, we didn't mention either. If you sign up for a Grace Cart trial, you get what we call a Grace Cart Mastery course. It steps you through how to set up an online store, how to set up your website, and literally that's a helpful educational resource, no matter what web platform you use. That's another resource that Brooks, we didn't even mention yet on this call. But yep, for sure, support@gracecart.com is the best email contact.
Well, Blaine and Brooks, on behalf of the team from Understanding Ag and Soil Health Academy, we want to thank you for taking part in this webinar this evening. It was very informative, and we look forward to an exciting future for all those who want to direct market. Our next webinar will be next Tuesday, Regenerating Human Health with Sarah Keogh. We hope to see you then. Thank you, everyone.
Right.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. See ya.